Tulsa Titans are those in our city who aren't backing down. They stay positive when things look hard. They lead with integrity, even when it requires sacrifice. They take their family life as serious as their work life. This show features them to teach and inspire the next generation among us. Welcome to Tulsa Titans, highlighting our local business professionals who are making a difference. I'm excited again today. I've got Leslie Clingenpeel here. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
And you are the director of the Spring Shelter. So you guys minister to adult victims of violence, stalking, sex trafficking. Can you speak to some of that for us as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my official title is actually the Director of Advocacy and Strategy for the Spring Shelter. We are a faith-based nonprofit who provides services to adult victims and their children of human sex trafficking, domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. And so we have been in business for about 40 years doing the ministry, and are excited to be adding that service to the community because it's a much needed service. I know human sex trafficking has kind of been the buzzword lately. So we have seen an uptick in just awareness in that, but we've been providing those services to human sex trafficking victims for over 10 years.
No, that's wonderful. And Leslie, I know you've got a passion for this, but I also know what you do. And you and I were talking about this kind of off the record, is just emotionally draining at times.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's something that you do every day to kind of prepare yourself for that you know allows you to be successful in your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do experience, we are in the mess of ministry, right? We are in the mess with people coming directly out of abusive scenarios. We have women come in seeking our help that are, black-eyed, bloody. So we see a lot of just hate, hurt, and pain. And so it is emotionally draining. And you can experience compassion fatigue in our field, right? So you can just get tired of being compassionate, as bad as that sounds. But to actually just avoid that, one thing that I do, and it sounds cliche, but I really do start my morning every single morning in the Word. I know that my source of strength does not come from myself. And if I try to live and change the world by myself, I'm going to burn out. And so every single day I just go first thing in the morning to the Word, and I listen to it audibly and just get my mind right for the day, and just remind myself of where my strength come from. Strength comes from, and it's not from myself. So that's my daily habit every single morning.
Well, that's wonderful. I know there's several resources for it, but you mentioned you listen to it audibly. Is there a certain app or a certain website that you use to be able to consume content like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I use the Youversion Bible app that was produced by Life Church. You can listen to, I actually go through the Bible in a year, every single year. So I listen to it daily through that. And then there's also video resources on there to understand what you're consuming.
No, that's awesome. Technology can be a great thing if you use it the right way.
Yeah.
And so we're just getting into 2021. Last year was different for everybody.
Yes.
And I know everybody sets up their goals, but what are some of the goals that you have that you set? But more importantly, as you set those, what are some of the things that you've reflected and you really stripped away this year?
Sure. So personal goals or professional goals, or both?
Both.
Both. Okay. Yeah. So I am obviously my title is Director of Advocacy and Strategy. So I am big on strategy. I love setting goals. I think that if you don't have goals and you don't know where you're going, you're not going to end up anywhere, right? You're just going to end up somewhere by accident instead of on purpose. So one thing that I do for our organization is that I do set annual goals. We try to have about 3 to 4 what we call pillars that we use, or goals that we use, that we focus on and filter all of our decisions and everything through that. And so a couple of those goals that we have for our organization is to do more outreach and advocacy, more outward facing services, and not just reactive services to victims. So we want to help prevent people from becoming victims, right? We want to work ourselves out of a job, I say. Not many people will say that, but in our industry, certainly we would like to eventually do that. But personally, again, I have just made a commitment I am in my master's program right now. And so I've given myself a goal to graduate with high honors in that program, which will end in December. And then within that goal just includes a lot of time spent in resources and learning. So.
Anything you are doing away with this year? So things as you consume more, or you're going for your master's degree, there's things that you've actually had to reflect on and stop.
Absolutely. And I will say, I think it was, for me, it was the opposite through the pandemic. A lot of people that were down, locked down, there was all this stuff going on social media of like the Netflix binges, and everybody was right, like Netflix and Disney Plus, like they capitalized on these people sitting in front of their TVs. But for us, and for our family and for myself personally, we just made a commitment to consume less of that, and to make sure that we are consuming more of nature and more of each other, our family, and again, content that is beneficial and edifying for my brain and for my mind, and not things that are just mush that add no value.
Right. It can kind of keep us, especially when things turn like they did last year. If we're consuming the wrong things, it can take us deeper into the hole that maybe others are providing for us to jump into.
Absolutely. An echo chamber. I make a commitment to myself to often read things by authors and people that I don't really align with or that I don't agree with, just so I'm ensuring that I'm not getting myself into an echo chamber, and that I'm knowing why I believe what I believe. Right.
So what is your why? Knowing what you believe, I mean, you gone from several different leadership roles, and now this is a big one, handling something that would break most people.
Yeah.
And so what gets you out of bed every morning? Why do you do what you do?
Oh man, again, I said it earlier, it may sound cliche, but I truly believe that there is a calling on my life that does not come from myself, that was gifted to me by God. And that is to use my voice to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. So really advocating for the vulnerable, whatever that may look like, and really sharing the true hope that I believe comes through only Jesus. We get the opportunity to meet basic needs for people fleeing situations. And that allows us to open up the door to talk to them about hope and freedom and their value and identity in Christ. And so I just remind myself that I get to do this, right? That a lot of people don't get to do this. I get to do this, and it's an honor. And I just believe more than anything that I have an obligation. If I have the hope that someone's looking for, I have an obligation to go out and share it, right? So that's just what I get up every day, hoping and seeking the opportunity to be able to speak life and hope into someone's life who has not had that, maybe ever.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful what you guys do, and that explains a lot of your energy and optimism around what you are doing.
Yeah,
But then you have a whole team of people, and so how
absolutely.
do you take that same hope, the same optimism, and the values, and what couple things do you do to make sure that's distilled throughout the entire team?
Yeah, so we are very serious about our values here. We do, it's no secret that we are faith-based and that we really love Jesus around here. We're not going to shove it down people's throat, and we do not discriminate on who we provide services to. We don't care what background, what gender, what religion. You can come here and have a safe place and be loved. But how we just keep our team from falling into compassion fatigue and just keeping our eye on, I always say around here with our team, we got to keep the main thing, and we can't be distracted by everything else. And so a couple of ways that we do it: if you walked into our building right now, you would walk down hallways and we have our core values listed there, in big posters, nicely marketed, of course, with brand guidelines, but we have those listed on our walls. We talk about them, and I do coaching one-on-ones with all of my direct reports, and we're talking about how they're living out the values of our organization. I use a values-based management approach. So people in my organization, all across the board, have decision-making power, and we use our values as the parameters, right? So these are the ditches. If it fits within our values and it's advocating and putting a guest first, then you can make that decision that needs to be made. And so we really just use our values to guide us and to keep our focus on the main thing so that we don't get distracted or off course.
When you mentioned one-on-ones, and I know for especially a lot of young leaders, you can become busy. It's easy to stay busy, especially when you're leading other people. Can you kind of explain maybe some of the ways that you process the one-on-ones and what the value to those one-on-ones with your team is?
Oh, absolutely. So it's no secret that in nonprofits, you have a job title, but you wear 425 hats, right? Like everybody is the janitor, right? Go grab a broom, clean up, But You can get busy with tasks, but I always just remind myself, and it really is helpful for me because I'm wired this way, but I remind myself that our people truly are our best asset in our organization. And we've got to be about people all the time. And so I want to make sure as a leader that I've done everything I can to ensure that people feel cared for, and that they feel empowered, and that they feel like I'm for them. And so those one-on-ones just are standing calendar appointments that I keep with my staff, and it allows them a chance to come in. We don't just talk about work. I talk about them as a person first, and help them set any kind of personal goals that they have, and help equip them to do that. And then we shift into work, and it's really more conversational and less transactional. It's just a time for me to get to sit across from a person and make sure that they know that I'm here for them, and that they have a place to tell me what they're thinking, because they may have a way better idea than I'm going to have, right? And if I'm not across from them and giving them a space and building that rapport, then I'm probably never going to hear about those things. And people will just put their head down and get busy doing the work. So yeah, I just keep those as they're on my calendar. And we may not get to do it monthly. We may have to do it every other month. But we do biannual performance reviews with one-on-one coachings along the way. So no one should ever get to a performance review and be surprised by what I'm saying to them. Those are there for us to help keep a gauge on if we continue to need to do some work, or if they're rocking it, then maybe I'm in their way and they need to move on and go do something better, right? So it really is to help coach and develop those team members.
Well, I've run into a lot of leaders that are nervous about the one-on-ones or the reviews, right? But people deserve clarity on their job.
Absolutely.
And they deserve to know where they're at. And when I run those, I actually get a huge sigh of relief, because people want, when you have good employees, they want to know where they excel, or where they can work, or how they can be better, right? And so I've always seen a lot of fruit out of those.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree. I think they need to be used as a tool to develop, and not as a, bad, they always get the bad review, like, oh, I'm going into the principal's office for the performance review. And around here, we want it to be, it's really for you, the employee, so that we can help develop you and grow you, and make sure you're in the right seat on the bus in our organization.
No, that's wonderful. Well, and so as you're pouring out or spending time with so many people, and then there's a lot of emotional equity in just what you do, is there somebody that you admire or learn from, or are there people that you purposely put as peers or leaders around you, so that you're not kind of sitting there running dry?
Yeah, absolutely. That is actually key for me. I do see a counselor, a Christian counselor. I keep a standing appointment with her every other week, actually, and spend an hour with her every other week. She's also a leadership coach. And so I don't spend a lot of time with clinical stuff, but we do spend a lot of time, with leadership and coaching. But I also have a group of peers that are kind of, I guess, would be on similar levels as me, executive levels, that we meet with once a month and go through books together, sort of like just a small group. But I keep those appointments on my calendar as well, because it's very important for me to be able to go check out and just process with other people who have the same view as I, right? Like level of organization, to help me see blind spots. And they have permission to speak into my life, right? They have permission. I'll go and say, am I thinking crazy about this? And they can say, yes, you are. And I value their input. So who do I admire? Man, so many people. I don't know that I could pick one. You asked, I got to see these questions a little bit before, and I was like, I don't think I have a one. I really admire anyone who is serious about their calling and will stay planted even when it's hard, because sometimes it gets hard and you're like, why am I doing this? I could go somewhere else and, go to Target and check out, whatever, where I don't have to think and I don't have to deal with mess. So yeah.
No, I feel the same. It's so important to have peers. And then I've got a couple of people just like you that I feel like outrun me a little bit, or they're willing to take all that and more. And it reminds me to not give up, when I'm running on an emotional equity. And I find that too, I can go a lot longer physically sometimes than I can emotionally. I do want to dive into this because in a worldview, I think it's very broken. You mentioned going to see a counselor. My wife and I feel like we have a great marriage, and we go to a counselor. And then there's times that I sit with a pastor that does some counseling with me. But the world says that that's only for broken people. And that's just not how I see it. I see that we have professionals all over the United States of America that'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on business minds, but they won't go see anybody that studies emotions in the mind to help them.
Absolutely.
Counseling.
Yep. Yes, that is so true. It should not be taboo. It should not be, it has been. And I think especially in, the Christian circles, right? It's like, well, just pray a little bit more. Well, our minds are subject to the fallenness of this world, just like our bodies are, right? And I think you got to nurture something that's healthy to keep it healthy. And it's not just for brokenness, and to be able to have a safe space to process that. And I think too, you hit on that, emotional equity. And I think that that's something that's highly missed by leaders, to manage and to manage in their organization, is the emotional data from their staff. So we provide employee assistance, and counseling for our staff as well. And as an organization, we cover that cost for them, because it's so important that they pour into that as well. And it really helps me to keep a gauge on emotional data as it comes from our staff. You can't put that in a spreadsheet and quantify it, right? But you got to keep an eye on it, and you've got to be mindful to provide space for that, for people to have those emotions, and to it not be a bad thing.
Well, and this is very off the cuff, but I feel that somebody that's going to listen to this at some point may need this. And I get this question a lot, but who do I go to? Yeah. And so since you guys have some partners in the community, do you mind naming a couple? If somebody's like, man, I really need to sit with somebody, who are some of the organizations that you trust?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we actually use Hope Forward Counseling, and my counselor's name is Brenda Black. If she sees this, sorry, Brenda Black, you might be getting some phone calls, but she's fantastic. And she has a team of people who can help there. She has several different therapists. She has male and female. So Hope Forward Counseling is who we utilize. There's also one, his name's Dr. Neiman, and I can't remember the name of his practice, but he's over at 51st and Sheridan. He has a really solid team of people as well. And I think I know Brenda Black and her team are Christian, but they're also very trained to be clinical, right? You don't have to be a Christian to see them. So those are two that we highly recommend.
No, thank you. I'm gonna write those down too and add to my list, because I get that a lot when you love people and they need, or they're in a scenario, or they've had a scenario in the past that they really need somebody that's a professional. It's wonderful to have those resources.
Agreed.
So I want to ask you one last question. You brought up, digging in and leadership and reading, and you're getting your master's. A couple books. So if you got shipped off to an island and you had to spend at least a month there, and you were going to go back through a couple of books that have really blessed you, what would those be and why?
Yeah, number one, without a doubt, is Spiritual Leadership by J. Oswald Sanders. I have read that book over and over. I have bought that book for ministry leaders when I was in my previous position at Solace Church. Just a solid book. I've read it multiple times, and I anticipate that I'll probably read it more, because it's just full of gold. And then I think probably, I'm looking over here at my bookshelf, Next Generation Leader by Andy Stanley. It's an older book, maybe one of his first ones, maybe, but really, really solid book. And I think it's really good. It's a good book for young people who are starting out in their journey to leadership. So those would be my two, probably top.
Well, wonderful. And if somebody's watching this and they have a question for you and want to ask it, there's just so many ways that people try to communicate with us, and some of them can be ineffective. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Definitely email. If you send me a text message or anything like that, I'm going to read it and then forget it. So if you want to, definitely email. And my contact information is on our website, thespringok.org. But my contact is leslie.c@thespringok.org.
Perfect. When I post this, I'll put the website link too.
Perfect.
Well, everybody, thank you. This is Kellen, New Age Solutions. I'm one of the partners here. And Leslie, thank you very much for giving today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
That was a blessing.
Uh-huh.